Alright, continuing my work on the Sopwith Camel. First thing I'm going to do is I need to create the fuselage of the aircraft. So the first thing I need to do in that sort of process is I'm going to take a copy of the front view and move it up to our top collection because for some reason it won't let me manipulate it here, so I'll just work around it. So looking from the front, I have two copies of the front view. I'm going to grab this one that I've created, yeah, that one, and I'm actually going to call it cross section. So that way, not enough S's, but anyhow, it doesn't matter in this case. And then rotate it 90 degrees so that I get the cross section of the aircraft. I'm also going to make my front view down the bottom here more invisible, so that it's transparent alpha, that's the main word. So back to the cross section. Now what I need to do is I need to start modelling this so it fits with the aircraft. So I'm going to get it just in position so it basically overlaps the main body of the aircraft, and that looks pretty good because you can see how it follows the silhouette that I've got here. I could just shove it across a little. That looks pretty good, so that the front does still stick out. And then as we go along the length of the aircraft, we'll be able to add in more detail. So this one at the top here is my view I1. I'll try to change the view and make it visible because I want to focus on that cross section, but in just a moment. Now I need to add the piece that will become the body section. So there are two ways of tackling this. The first is to start with a cube and refine it down. The second is to start with a circle and extrude it out. It's difficult to tell at this stage which would be the better choice. So I'll show you both, but hopefully I can get them both done in this video. So adding the first up will be the cube, and then dropping into edit mode. Oops, that should be at the top section because I can manipulate that. Alright, so I'm going to scale that down and grab. In fact, all these views, for some reason, the alpha is turned off on all of them, so I'll just re-enable that so I can see what I'm doing. Alright, back to the cube then. So, I need to get back into edit mode so I can grab this thing and basically position it where I need it. So, I'm just scaling and positioning at the moment to get this point where I need it. So, I'll grab the Z direction, pull it down. Together and then scale to make them fit. That looks pretty good. And what you can see is I've got this sort of cubic shape here, and I'll need to refine that shape to make it work. So back to the front view and turning off my front, I need to look at this thing. And how to get this to match, I've just done cross section B. I'll flip back to the side and grab that bit and move it to where I want cross section A. That cross section B. I can actually just ignore that at the moment. So I probably should have sort of started with a straight up square. What you'll notice at this point is that there's these little cutouts across the top here that really need to be refined. So if I had a ring cut across the top to probably about there. Actually no, I'll move the points in first. Actually ring cut to that point and then grab the top, scale it in so it crosses over. You can see I've got none of that curve there, none of the detail, but I'm just working around it. So, scaling in the bottom points, I've just got this sort of triangular shape that represents that cross section there. And the process I'd end up going through is basically adding a series of ring cuts and scaling appropriately to get the shape about right. And this is why I say a circle may have been a better choice. And I think in this case it actually is. So here I've got that first cross section. If I flip to my side view, I can grab all those points and extrude them back to point B, and then have a look at what it looks like on point B in the front. So getting my cross-sectional view, getting out of that object, selecting my cross section, grabbing this and just sliding it across in the Y direction, I think. No, X direction? Yeah, X direction. So that it overlaps, and then I'm going to have to pull these two back points, which I know from experience of the inner ones. Grab, pull down a little bit, and then try and replicate that shape. And you can see it's kind of starting to take shape here. So this is my first example of doing this. Right, so I'm going to put that aside for the time being, and then show you the same trick but with a circle. Now, whether you start with a square or circle depends on the basic shape of the vehicle. So if you look at an aircraft like this, it's mainly circular in design. With something like a car, it's sort of boxy and cubic, you'd start with a cube in that case. So using the cube will be a better choice for the Phantom that I'm also doing, the Phantom 2E. Alright, so starting with the circle design, I'm just going to start up with a straight up circle. It gives me some relevant information, and there's my circle. It's completely in the wrong direction, but we'll go with that. It has 32 vertices around the outside and a radius of about 1 meter, or actually 1 meter precisely. So in this case, the vertices might be a little too much given the shape of that, or I can actually reduce it down to appropriate. So the cross section I want to start with is actually the B cross section, and then I'll refine from there. So firstly, into edit mode, I'm going to rotate 90 degrees because I'm looking side on. It'll go where I want it to do, and then grab it, position it over B, and then scale down appropriately. The point of this is that I want the top edge of this to be right, and the bottom edge I'm going to modify and flatten out, because that bottom bit, the cross between A and B and the vehicle there, is actually flat. So here I'm going to again reshape the vehicle, and we'll look at how that goes. And then finally extrude it out. And see, I'm already building the vehicle fuselage pretty much, and and then scale that down to be appropriate. There's always different ways of tackling this, but we'll see how we go. So back to my front view. What I'm interested in, and I want to hide all the stuff that I'm not dealing with at the moment. So I'm just going to focus on the middle cross section. I'm going to hide the front and back. So H to hide, and then select the front section and hide that. If you want to get that stuff back, it's Alt H, which is the reverse of hiding it, I suppose. So for this, again, I'm going to apply that cheat I talked about earlier. Well, not really a cheat, but a way of doing it is adding the mirror modifier, so that I can grab all this, exit out of existence, enable clicking, and probably flipping in the Y direction, I suspect. No, not the Y direction, the X direction. That's better. Alright, so I only need half a circle. Looking front on, I need to get the curve of this circle to match the curve of that. So I'm just going to select one of these vertices, Control L to get all the linked stuff, and then grab it, reposition it, and then start scaling it in. Now, if I scale it normally, what you'll see it happen when I scale in, I think it's the X direction, is it starts to distort weirdly, which is not too bad. But we have our crosshair, the little red one in the center. This is our reference point. This is the cursor, and you can reposition it with this icon here. What I'm going to get it to do is actually distort based on where that cursor is. So there's this little double link chain thing. Normally it selects the median point, but here we will just want to use the 3D cursor, because that way it'll scale to the cursor as opposed to anything else. So if I scale it just in the X direction, I'm just able to distort that outer edge to match the body of the vehicle better. Then, whoops, just reposition the cursor for some bizarre reason. These three I want to flatten out. So, going back from cursor to the median point, I'm going to scale in the Z direction 0, makes them flat, and then just grab them and slide them straight up so they look pretty much flat with that one, and that's the bottom of our vehicle. Grab that chunk and just move it up a little bit more so it overlaps. Done. Alright, then we need to deal with the next section. So Alt H, we can pick another part of the vehicle. I'm going to Alt-A to unselect everything. Look in the front and delete all this extra stuff that I don't need. X vertices. Because it's mirrored, I can work on that section, and I know this alternate side is going to be the same. And at this point I can pick front or back, so it really doesn't matter. Let's just do the back because I know that'll be easier. Hide to hide that again, H to hide that again. Looking from the front, grab the cross-sectional piece. So I have to get out of this and go back to that one. Back to object mode, then move this cross-section over. Oops. Yeah. So that's about center on my little black line here. And then select my mesh or circle. Okay, circle. Circle should be up there. Circle. And then I can reshape these in a similar fashion. So the top's pretty good. The side needs to be flattened out, and the bottom needs to be flattened out as well. So scale Z0. That gets that flat, and I just grab it and pull it straight down. Then this side section here, scale X0, flattens that out, and I can then just grab that and reposition it where I need. Now this thing's getting the background view is getting too difficult to see, so I'm just going to go into the cross section and modify the data on that to make it use alpha. That way I can actually see what's going on. Back to my circle, and I need to get this last little point here and basically sit it between the two. So something like that. Looks pretty good. And then when we go out of object mode back into, edit mode back into object mode, we should see the shape of the vehicle is really starting to take shape. So doing it this way is actually a little better. I'm running out of time on this video at this point, but I'll come back and do the front section in just a moment.